Hey guys, Matt here and welcome to this review on my channel. Thank you so much for dropping by. In this one we're going to be talking about a fragrance that I've talked about it quite a few times actually, because it is one of my favorite fragrances from the 1980s. It's a classic fragrance that you can still actually buy for really cheap in its new formulation. I own the new formulation and I also own a 1988 formulation as well. The fragrance we're going to be talking about is the absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. Of course, this is one of those fragrances that I think could be love-hate, but this to me is amazing. This is Lapidus Pour Homme by Ted Lapidus. So Ted Lapidus, of course, created suits in the 1960s and the 1970s. He was a very successful suit maker. A lot of famous people wore his suits, and he was a very popular household name in the 1970s. But it wasn't until the 80s and the late 70s where he started getting into fragrances. There was, of course, a very long gone discontinued fragrance called Ted Lapidus Pour Homme that came out in 1978. It had a really cool red bottle with a built-in sprayer, and that one is long gone discontinued. And that was I think that was a very strong, leathery, oak moss type of fragrance. And then, of course, in 1987, he brought out this one, which is Lapidus Pour Homme. And this one, there's just no words can even describe how good this is. This is the vintage bottle, and this is the new one. So I'm going to show you guys both bottle designs. I mean, this isn't really a comparison video, but I will compare both of them for the sake of talking about the smell and stuff. So yeah, just an absolutely amazing fragrance that I just had to review again on my channel. And after putting a post up on Instagram, a few people even said, yeah, you need to talk about Lapidus Pour Homme. So that's what I'm doing for this one. So yeah, let's get into it. It says on Fragrantica here that Lapidus Pour Homme is an amber fragrance. I wouldn't call it an amber scent. This is definitely an oriental slash... yeah, I would just really call it an oriental in all fairness. There isn't really anything... I mean, there is an amber element in there, of course, but it's not an amber scent. If amber was the strongest note, then it would be an amber fragrance. But it's not the strongest note in the scent, by a long mile. It is just an amazing fragrance. So we're going to talk a little bit about the perfumer now. So this fragrance was designed by Martin Gras. Now, Martin Gras he's just a brilliant perfumer. I mean, he created this one. He's created Boudoir from Vivienne Westwood, which of course is just an absolute bomb on white florals and oriental notes. So this guy, of course, has been around. He's made some really popular fragrances from yesteryear. So let's get into Lapidus Pour Homme. Now, this fragrance, I'm going to spray. I don't even know where to spray because I'm wearing so many fragrances today, guys. It's unreal. I've got the dry down here, so I'm going to spray. I'm going to go with the vintage first. I'm going to show you guys a video right now of both bottles. I will show you guys in the this video actually coming up which one is new and which one is the original, so you guys can kind of get an idea and tell which one is vintage and which one is new. So here we go. Now, the bottle design for this, I know I don't usually go into much detail with bottle designs, but the bottle design for Lapidus Pour Homme is definitely one of the most obscure, but it has this retro-futuristic look to it, which I really like. It's always reminded me of this kind of spaceship debris kind of look, which just, I really like. I mean, it's always just looked like that to me, like the debris off some mothership or something, A really gorgeous look to the bottle. The vintage has this marble kind of effect to it, with that, of course, very famous grey tone to it. And the ridges actually feel really solid compared to the new version. The new version has a bit more of this just cheaply made, like the actual grey colour is just painted on, whereas in the vintage, the glass itself is actually polished on. I think it's just different. It's like the paint in this is like the kind of paint that scratches off on the new bottle, whereas in the vintage it's very much the actual bottle itself is grey, if that even makes sense. But if you look at other sides of the bottle, like the top with the gold trim, it's literally identical to the new version. There's no differences in that. The only differences are just some information on the vintage, and even some information on the bottom of the bottle and stuff. That's the only thing that's different. When I'm holding them up here, you can really see the difference, like the difference between the Lapidus writing on the vintage here and the new version here, which looks a little bit more cheaper, if that makes sense. But both versions, by the way, are really good. The reformulation, in my opinion, is still very good. I've seen people talking about it online and saying things like the new version doesn't last. It's literally like a watered down version of the original. I have to disagree. I mean, it might depend on certain batches. I've had this batch for about a year now. I think this is actually a 2019 batch, and I've heard the 2019 batches were good. So yeah, now that we're into 2021 and they're still making this fragrance, I haven't actually tried the version of like this year, so I don't know what it's like. But if you guys could let me know, please do. I mean, it would be really interesting to know about. So okay, so we're gonna spray the vintage now. And we're going to spray the new version on here. All I'm smelling is this fragrance. Now, in all fairness, when you first spray it and you get the smell, there isn't really much difference between both versions. It's not really. It's really until it starts to dry down that the fragrance really starts to like change and starts to smell different. But anyway, let's talk about it. So, in terms of the opening for Lapidus Pour Homme, it's a very complex smell. It's one of those fragrances that when you smell it, you cannot tell what's going on in there. Like, it just opens up with this very charismatic scent, which really has so much character to it. It's unreal. Like, this medley and every single note, and it just dances together. So gorgeous. And it's just beautiful. So what we're going to talk about is the top notes. So the top notes for Lapidus Pour Homme from 1987, we get a dominant player of this fragrance, which is pineapple. And we also get lavender, artemisia, juniper berries, basil, lemon, and bergamot. So in the opening, honestly, that's the new version, and that's the old version. Okay, so with the old version, in my opinion, I'm getting so much lavender that it actually, to me, just smells like a lavender-based scent at this point. There is a little bit of lemon playing underneath that. I'm not really getting a bergamot touch. There is so much greens and herbs, like there's that basil, a little bit of artemisia in there as well, which of course was very popular in a lot of old school fragrances. It's a green note. I love artemisia a lot. Not a lot of people do, but I really do enjoy the note. It's just, yeah, it's almost like this honey covered pineapple with this lavender underneath. That's what I kind of get in the opening. And with the new version, I'm pretty much getting a similar smell, but it is slightly weaker. It doesn't smell as potent as it does as, of course, this version. I mean, this one just has this really strong concentrated smell to it that I've hardly used that version, in all fairness, because it's just so strong. Usually with Lapidus, this version, I'll go like 3 sprays on my neck and then that's me done. This one, you can actually smell all of the illegal musks that's in there that couldn't be put into a fragrance nowadays, hence why it's been reformulated. It's sad because it really does smell more original, and it does smell way better than this version. Don't get me wrong, this version is still excellent. It really is. For the price you pay for it especially. I mean, this has always been a very inexpensive scent. Even in the 80s, in the 90s, it was inexpensive. So it's always been a very easy to get scent in terms of that. But the smell is just beyond something special, in my opinion. I really hold a lot of good memories with this. I remember the first time I ever wore this, I went to a comedy club in Newcastle, and we had a hell of a night. We never laughed so much in my entire life. And I was wearing this, and I just remember the whole night smelling it on myself, and it just brings back memories of being in the comedy club and having those good times with my mate. You know, it was good, and I hold a lot of nice memories with this fragrance. I really do. So as it's drying down, it gets even better. It gets so much better. But like I said, there are so many notes in this fragrance that, you know, if in all fairness, it's going to be a pain in the arse for me to edit this video afterwards. But let's talk about the middle notes. The middle notes that we get honey, incense, pine, rose, Brazilian rosewood, which is a kind of sandalwood type of smell, caraway, jasmine, orris root, lily of the valley, and petitgrain. So again, so many notes, but that honey and that incense are just so delicious. The honey especially, it is this beautiful, absolutely just beautiful honey note that when I first smelled this, I was like, wow, this is a unique scent based around honey that has never been created before. And of course, since owning Lapidus, I've realized that there is another honey-based fragrance from 1984 called Boss Number 1, and the honey note in that is a little bit similar to Lapidus. Not the same scent overall, but the honey note in it is similar to that as it is in Lapidus. But it's the whole it's just this, like I said before, it's this medley of all of these notes put together, and what it literally creates to me is this full-bodied, masculine, charismatic, oriental scent that I really do feel defines the 80s. It's just a beautiful fragrance that could even look like a skyscraper, you know what I mean? Which really just does capture 80s masculinity down to a T. It's just absolutely stunning, but I just absolutely love that whole incense, honeyed, pineapple, lavender hybrid kind of smell that this has. It's just literally stunning. There's a little bit of jasmine in there also, so if you're into jasmine, you will notice it. A little bit of rose as well, but the rose isn't like your typical Amouage lyric man, where it's just a dominant rose. Nothing like that. It's in there about as much as the jasmine is, just to create this nice bouquet. Very nice, subtle bouquet. Very, very nice. And the base notes are also absolutely divine for this fragrance. We get notes like tobacco, patchouli, oak moss, amber, sandalwood, musk, tonka bean, and cedarwood. So this is just one of those fragrances that's an example of so many notes being put into a scent. But that's the beauty of it. The amount of notes that can be put into a fragrance can really create something special. And I mean, obviously nowadays fragrance houses are not creating scents that have all of these types of notes in them. But they did in the 80s and they did in the 90s, and that's just what I love about it. It's so it's just a nice part of perfume history, the fact that they used so many notes. And the dry down is just, again, probably the best part of the fragrance, in all fairness. It has the honey stays around, but the pineapple and the lavender do start to subdue, and what you're left with is this nice tobacco, kind of smoke tobacco. It's not smoky, but it has this smoke kind of scent to it. It's mossy. Like I said before, there's that amber kind of element to it, which is quite warm and keeping it oriental. And the musk in the dry down with the vintage is just absolutely infectious, in my opinion. I just cannot stop smelling it. The musk that it reminds me of is kind of like a castoreum, which of course real castoreum isn't used in fragrances anymore. It's actually illegal, but this smells about as real as any old animalic musk could have smelt in the 80s. It's just absolutely sensational really to smell, because when I'm smelling it in that bottle and then I go to the new version, it's like they're not there, if that makes sense. Like, I can smell the musk and the animalic notes from the vintage, but when I go to the new version, all I really get is that pineapple, that kind of pineapple mixed in this honey kind of scent. That's all I really get. I'm not really getting any of the animalic tones, which of course isn't a bad thing. I mean, if fragrance houses aren't allowed to use the real version of notes, then they can't do it. And then when it comes to creating their old school fragrances again, nowadays, they have to use substitutes to create the blend again, or to make it similar. All I'm going to say is, this fragrance hasn't really changed. That's all I'm going to say to you guys. So, if you're really into Lapidus Pour Homme and you are really wanting to get a new version like this one, don't worry about it, honestly. There isn't really much difference. You can get the new version for about £14 on eBay. Really, really inexpensive stuff. And I think you'll really enjoy it regardless of the differences. It's just an absolutely amazing scent. So, honey lovers out there, this is divine. Any lavender fans as well, this is divine. If there's any fans of people who are really into unique scents, especially like Lapidus Pour Homme, then you need to check it out. This is I remember checking this one out for the first time and I just fell in love with it. I saw many reviews for it and everyone said basically that this was an excellent scent. And I've done, like I've said at the beginning as well, I've done so many reviews for this on my channel. I think I've done like 2 already. But I just wanted to bring you guys a more updated, more experienced review, because my nose is really, I feel like my nose is very experienced with this fragrance, obviously because I've had it for many years now. Obviously I haven't had it for as long as most people who lived in the 80s. If you were one of those people who lived in the 80s and you wore this, let me know your experiences with it. Let me know your memories of Lapidus Pour Homme. I would absolutely love to hear. I love hearing stories. I really do. So that's all I'm going to say, guys. Lapidus Pour Homme, a 1987 release, which is just absolutely stunning. Scent life on this, nuclear. I get about 14 to 15 hours of it being on my skin. That's with the new vintage version. The new version, I get about 9 to 10 hours, so it is weaker in that regard. It's watered down. It doesn't have that potency behind it towards the end of the 10th hour. So yeah, but still great scent. For a scent that's £14 and lasts for a good 9 to 10 hours, you cannot beat that. There's most designer fragrances these days and they're only lasting 5 to 6 hours, and you think to yourself, God, I paid all this money, what's the point? Well, there's a great example here. Really great example. And I'm going to give you guys some similar fragrances now. So if you're into Kouros by Yves Saint Laurent, or Yves Saint Laurent I should say, I would give Lapidus Pour Homme a try. I think that this was heavily inspired by Kouros. Of course, Kouros is a legend of a scent, a beautiful honey-based talcum powder, musk kind of scent. If you've never smelled Kouros, then you really do need to. It's divine. I've only got a little bit left, but hopefully I'll get it again in my collection very soon. I'm happy to have Lapidus though. This fragrance is in the same realm as Kouros. It has that whole Kouros and that barbershop type of musk dry down element that Kouros has. So if you're into Kouros, give Lapidus Pour Homme a try. I think you'll really like it. Yeah, that is the end of this review, guys. Really enjoyed doing this. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of Lapidus Pour Homme, and yeah, you guys are incredible. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Keep smelling good, and bye for now.